beautiful planet of ours. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we try to dig a lot deeper than the mainstream media does when it comes to issues affecting you, society, your family, and the world. So tonight we are going to be dealing with one of my favorite topics, and that's going to be sociopathy. And we have a educator. Voila, I got something in common here. And an author. Again, something in common. And we are going to deal with the topic, well, the title of her book, My Sociopath. Lynn, would you like to introduce yourself and tell me why you wrote a book on sociopathy?
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me. I wrote a book on sociopathy called My Sociopath because I just started looking back at my life and I seemed to attract really bad people, really bad relationships, one after another, and it seemed like there was a part of me that was intrigued by high energy people that I term it, and a lot of sociopath writers do term it this way, love bombers. They love bomb us. They're super charming, high manic energy. And it seemed these type of people, in particular men, were attracted to me as I was attracted to them. So I started looking back at my strange past of destructive relationships, and I started researching it on the internet. What is this? Who are these people? They're super charming. They come on strong at the beginning. They take you over, take your life over. And in particular, me, I allowed it. I would allow a man to move in with me within a week. I thought it was a flattering experience. I thought it was special. So I started looking back that there's something going on here. I started Googling these terms, started coming across a lot of people like you and on the internet that were talking about sociopaths and narcissists. So I started doing more looking into this, and it fit every single person that was in my life. It even went back to my father and my mother. And there's so much mental illness, and especially when we come from mental illness, when we're raised in it, this is what we're drawn to later in life. We're not drawn into healthy relationships with healthy people. We're attracted to the opposite. So I started going further and further, deeper into the hole, and then the book came out. First, I started off on Facebook, though, and Twitter, started gathering a following that way with my writings. People seemed to be drawn into it more and more each year. This started happening about 4 years ago, and then a book came out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you said there, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but it kind of proves, you said that you may have had parents that displayed these characteristics, and that goes back to the old Freud thing. We're attracted to people that display the characteristics of our forebears.
Yes. I mean, how can we be attracted to other than that? If we are raised by dysfunction, we're not going to go out there and be attracted to the quiet librarian guy that's mellow and moderate and he doesn't have any wild fluctuations in his personality. Are we really going to be attracted to that? We're going to be attracted to what we came from. And this is what we have to look into. We have to look back at our patterns to make these connections. And that's what I do in my book. I make these connections between what I'm doing currently and my past, my childhood.
Okay. Well, before I ask the next question, I'm just going to point out that people can find out more about you at, if you look up on Twitter, My Sociopath, and, that's the squiggly A, My Sociopath, and find information there. And heck, check out mine at Psycho Mike Gov, and, get more information at Twitter, since that's, social media seems to be really growing and helping people to be able to reach out. And you said the thing about 4 years ago. That's about the same time I started writing. And it seems that there's been a blossoming of this interest in sociopaths and malignant narcissists and so forth. do you have an answer to this? Why is it all of a sudden this has become a major issue?
Yes, you're right. It's 4 years ago. If you look at all the big writers and out there on social media, it's something about 4 years ago. I don't know. I don't want to be too esoteric out there, but it was an expansion of our consciousness, I think, as the human species. Something just clicked a few years ago. And I think, what is it, the 100 monkey thing? Once we all start learning something, it spreads. I had a friend 15 years ago. She's 25 years older than me. We taught together. She was sort of my mentor teacher. 18 years ago, maybe, when I first started out as a teacher, she mentioned to me, you know, that guy you're with is a narcissist, don't you? And this is when I was just a kid. I thought when she said that, she meant the guy that just looks at himself in the mirror, the vanity thing, which is a component of the personality disorder, narcissism, but it's not the all. So when she said that to me all those years ago, it planted a seed within me, but I always thought of it as somebody that's obsessed with their appearance. I didn't understand it, and I think we were all like that 15 years ago. And something happened a few years ago where narcissistic personality disorder came to our, the front of our brains. And then we all went, wait a minute. And so we all started Googling, and then it came along with the word sociopath too. So I don't know. I think of them one and the same. Sociopath, more destructive than a narcissist. More covertly and manipulative, destructive. I kind of class them together, apart from psychopath. To me, a psychopath is more of the killer, the person in jail. The sociopath and narcissist are walking amongst us, and they're super charming, likable people. But they will discard you in a second. So they'll love you 1 second, love, air quotes, they lust, basically, and they're just horny. But they will lust you in 1 second. They think it's love. And then if you don't fulfill their ego needs and flatter them and compliment them, they'll drop you in the next second. And that's what I think makes a lot of us start looking into sociopathy or narcissistic personality disorder. It's the discard. They will overtake our lives in 1 second, acting like our knight in shining armor. And then the next second, if we let them down in one minute way or don't flatter their ego or compliment, they'll be riding off down the road with whoever walks past them. And I think that's what compels us to go into shock and look into the narcissistic personality disorder versus just plain old the guy looking in the mirror. And something happened 4 years ago where these psychological terms went broad out there that we're all coming across it.
I'm wondering if one of the reasons why it really got out is for a long time, the media was concentrated in the big, they used to call themselves the gatekeepers, the big newspapers, the big networks. And if they were explaining a political issue, they always did the whole like high school social studies thing. It was always the politicians compete with each other. There are public servants. Then the electorate has their say, and then we have policy from that. And then when people started, when we had alternative media coming out, where people could go out and they could actually research and were starting to put things together, when it didn't seem that that's the way it really worked anymore. I'm wondering if that's when suddenly people started going, wait a minute, are the people that rule over us actually malignant narcissists and sociopaths? And this explains the whole political process way more than Mr. Jones' high school U.S. government class.
Good point. And the more you get into this topic and the more you read, it's the people that are in control of us. They do have a set personalities. Set traits that you have to be into power. You have to have that controlling personality. You have to know how to get to the top. A lot of us don't know how to do that. We could be the best people in the world, but we don't have that within us to push our way to the top. And you do have to do that as a politician or a lot of people that rise to the top. How do they do it? You have to be cutthroat. You have to be into seeking your own power. I don't care about my own power. That's why I am where I am right now. So you got to think about these type of personalities. How do you get to the top like this? Why do you want to control so many people? Why do you want to be in charge of so many people? It's not because you're an empath, likely, and not many empaths rise to the top.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, if you are using this metaphor, Mr. Jones' government class or something, what's promoted is the idea of the sacrificing servant, the civil servant who goes in and decides that they're going to try to make a difference. And yet the traits that you need in a very competitive field, ultimately empaths have a lot of guilt associated with their very being, that they don't want to hurt someone. They don't want to manipulate. Whereas a sociopath and a malignant narcissist, they have a different type of guilt. I often say they have disappointment when they don't get their way. That's their guilt. They don't have that, oh my gosh, I've been a bad person type of personality, do they?
No. And you're right about okay, if I cannot rise to a CEO because I couldn't rise in the business world, I couldn't be a boss and fire people, I would feel bad. I would think about, oh no, they're going to go hungry. Oh no, they're poor children. But these psychopaths or sociopaths and narcissists, sociopaths, they can rise to be bosses and then to CEOs and then maybe in the political field because they can fire people. They're not thinking about what's going to happen to the children of these people, what's going to happen, how are they going to pay their mortgage. I would go further into the thought process of firing somebody and feel all this guilt about doing it. And I have a hard time doing it, but they don't. They think more of the big picture. How are they going to make the company excel? How are they going to impress the stockholders? And this too, why is they go into politics, is about how do you get to the end result. I think too many steps to get to the end result. Oh no, I'm going to hurt this and I'm going to hurt the environment. And, so yeah, you're right about the guilt. It's a different way of guilt. They feel if they don't succeed at something, quote, air quotes, that it's the guilt that, they didn't do what they should have done and they need to go out and do it better next time. We don't think that necessarily that. We might, something might fail around us and we might beat ourselves up more than going out there and trying to do it more cunning the next time.
Mm-hmm. I've often thought of the difference between, and you can elaborate on this, please do. The difference between a malignant narcissist and a sociopath would be that the malignant narcissist is trying to climb to the top to get more personal acclaim, people giving them adulation, and and along with that, of course, you get the power and the glory, and and of course, being narcissistic, you believe in yourself. That's another thing. The narcissist is actually really good at attaining goals because they believe they can do it, versus a lot of people, they sabotage themselves. The sociopath, on the other hand, is more like if they do have a goal, they are, I don't know, they would be kind of like the, and I'm using this as an example because I'm saying James Bond, I think, is a archetypical sociopath. He will attain whatever he needs and, blow up all the bad guys in the process to get his goal, and whatever that might be. Elaborate, please.
Right. Well, I think it's the energy too. I think you're hitting upon the energy. Sociopaths and narcissists have an amazing energy about them. I don't. If something bad hits me in life, I want to crumble in bed for 5 days. But they have this amazing energy around them. I called it yesterday on another interview manic. It's this manic energy that can keep going out and seeking and seeking and seeking And a lot of us, and again, quote, normal people, or any of us normal, but you know what I'm trying to say, non-narcissistic or non-sociopathic, we don't have that energy about us. We let things affect us and we let things get us down. They don't. They have this unbelievable way to rebound. And yes, it's like what you said, it's for their own self-serving needs. And that drives them more than it might drive us. We might be not driven so much as self-serving as they are. And that keeps them going and going. And then they become more smart. Every time they might have a letdown, they know how to wiggle their way around it and go above that little setback and be even more cunning. A lot of us, we can't become more cunning as we go along in life. Because we have more of the effects of our environment and it gets us on more. They don't. They're not affected by things, basically.
So in other words, they're high energy Machiavellians.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And that's why a lot of us, and men get absorbed by histrionic women. Those are more of the narcissistic males called histrionic women. Some men get absorbed by those type of women, but they're not as prevalent as a narcissistic male. So this is why so many people are drawn to them, in particular love relationships and in the politics, like you mentioned. It's because of their high energy, very high energy people. I'm looking at Hillary out there. They're 25 years older than me and Trump, and how are they doing it? Their energy level is unbelievable, and that's their magnetism and how they draw people in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the thing that's going to make a politician successful is that ability that they gain their adoration from the crowd, the applause. Did you ever see? I don't know if you've ever been when you were a kid, if you ever watched the old Star Treks.
I think I did a little bit with my mother.
There's one episode in which they get there's like half of they put a lot of Klingons. Some alien winds up getting a bunch of Klingons and a bunch of humans, and they're fighting each other, and they can't die. They get wounded, but then they regenerate, and this entity is just pulling the hatred in, and that's how it lives. And I think the sociopath, they gain the energy of adoration. It's almost like a solar cell, just taking in everyone's love and support, and they can mimic that they love that person back.
Yes, and this is what I've always said. They cannot go inward. Me, and probably you and many of us out there, I could sit at home for 8 hours and write on my book. I could spend 1 hour trying to improve a paragraph that I'm writing. They don't have that. They can't think long term. Well, if I spend 4 years hardship over this book, maybe in 4 years one person will buy it. They can't think in those terms. They can't stay at home and focus inwardly on reading that great novel or trying to write a good paragraph or working on their garden. They can't do that. They need to be constantly out there, seeking attention from people and getting that instant gratification from the instant pleasure. They can't think long term. If I write this book, maybe spend 4 years improving it, maybe somebody will appreciate me. They can't think that way. They need the instant gratification of the instant attention, the instant applause, the instant "you're so good, you're so great." Oh my gosh, you're my hero. They need that. That's why they love bomb people. Besides the politicians, the one in our daily lives, will pick up the check for us at a restaurant. They will buy us inappropriate gifts when they first meet us. They will come into our house and do inappropriate. I mean inappropriate in the way that we've just met them. They will come into our house and reconstruct a bathroom. We just met the person a month ago, and it's all love bombing, and that's what the politicians do. They're getting that applause, as you mentioned, and it's more instant pleasure for them. I don't need it. I hope I write a sell book, but it's not, my life does not depend upon it. I don't need that instant, and healthier people don't need the instant gratification of that instant admiration, as you said, or adoration.
Yeah, that's an advantage for them too, and the fact that they sense one of the characteristics is easily bored. They do gain a level of power, influence, or whatever in a field, and then they get bored with that, and then they need a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, which our society is based on the idea of that's good. That's the people that need to be given more power and authority.
Right. It's, social media, we talked about at the beginning, it's a good tool. It's we become educated off of the internet and social media and great writers and great speakers such as yourself. But it's also instant gratification. We could put something out there. I guess Trump is into Twitter. I don't know. I don't pay attention to him. But I guess he's putting all these tweets out there. What is it? It's instant gratification. People responding back. People, I don't know how many followers he has, but it's all instant out there. And our society does feed into dating sites, for instance. You go on there, you put up the best picture of yourself, you Photoshop it a little bit, you put up all the great things about you, quote, great, things about your life. You got all the bad things about your life and all these people interested in you. It's all image. It's all superficialities. And our society is based upon it. And if we're on a dating site and we date somebody for a couple of weeks, we don't like them, we go back on the dating site and we hit up the next person. It's just, that's our society. It's based upon that instant gratification. Reality TV, it's all instant pleasure. Nothing's long-term and lasting or hard work anymore. It's receiving the applause and the notice. Everybody wants to be noticed now.
And I contended in a show just recently that in a society that I call these people, I call our modern society wannabe narcissist. And what I mean by that is I actually believe that people that are sociopathic, psychopathic, narcissistic, that there's a genetic predisposition that then things trigger those characteristics to come into full bloom later in life. But it seems to me that wannabe narcissists are much easier prey for the true thing, because the wannabe gets their adoration from how many, I don't know, they put a picture up on Facebook and they get 20 likes on it and they feel devastated because their friend got 80 likes on their picture. So they go to the next step, try to show a little bit more cleavage, things like that. But then a true narcissist or a true sociopath might send a personal message to that person saying, wow, I never realized how gorgeous, and start blah, blah, blah. And then that person's like, they're putting themselves up for victimhood there.
Good point. I've never thought that is an amazing way to say that. Yes, and it's all feeding into itself too. The narcissists are preying upon. I love how you said that. The wannabe narcissist. That is such a yes, and it's a cycle. So then she, with the cleavage, gets all excited, and he's telling her the words she needs to hear, and it's all cyclical. He'll get sick of her in a few months and discard her and get bored by her. And it's what you said earlier. They're very prone to boredom. And what you said about their jobs or their careers, they have to go on to the next higher and higher high. And I always say it's few years. They survive at jobs for, I'm saying 4 or 5 years. And then something happens. They destroy everything around them. People start catching on to them. People start feeling leery about them. They start messing up because of their prone to boredom. So they start messing up. So then they have to move on to the next. And that's what they are with people too. They get bored and they have to move on to the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just seems that, again, our media, which I do believe, I also had a show a while back that pointed out the 10 occupations that most attract, in this case, psychopaths. And in there, journalists, media people like marketers, politicians, surgeons, emergency room doctors, those kind of people, they tend to be at least high in these traits, if not, diagnosable. And so if you look at marketing and media today, it's just trying to turn everyone from, they get out of the womb and all of a sudden they're getting bombarded with brand names. And this is how you define yourself. And it's almost like you're making the 99% into, this could be adoration magnets. I never thought of that one. Adoration magnets, where they want adoration really bad. The sociopath and the malignant narcissist can offer it really quick.
Right, and they know that we need this. I don't know how many of you out there live in Southern California, but oh my goodness, it just, I don't know. Back when I was a kid, the 50, 60-year-old people were happy being home and gardening. You used to see the cougars out here. I mean, women, 40s and above, 50s, 60s, just everything is just going to Trader Joe's to show how much cleavage they have and how much pulled back they are, and to get the Trader Joe's clerks to admire them. Everything is about that. Look at me, look at me, look at me. It's just so shallow. I was tutoring math. I was math tutoring a 14-year-old girl. She lived in a $2.5 million house. These parents were paying me decent money, and she was sitting there the entire time on her iPhone, on every social media outlet you can get. And so just even the little tiny side notes of me being a tutor in somebody's home, it's gotten out of control. And she was 14 years old, and her mother was taking her to cosmetic surgeons all the time if she had an outbreak of acne. I mean, when we had outbreaks of acne when we were a kid, that was a normal thing. It was part of being a kid. So every time she had one pimple show up on her face, her mother, in the middle of the tutoring session, would run her off to see a cosmetic surgeon, somebody for facials or whatnot. So it's out of hand. And I know I'm using Southern California, it's widespread, but try living out here. Oh my goodness, everything is look at me, look at me.
Yeah, I just remember when I first visited, I was born there, but then my parents moved. But when I first visited Southern California, I was really shocked by seeing people jogging and smoking at the same time. I mean, I was like on the beach and I saw several people do it, but they looked like they worked out. They were like, they were trying to get their body looking a certain way. It had nothing to do with health. I mean, if you're smoking and you're doing exercise, you're getting the stuff really deep in your lungs. But they didn't care about that. They cared about how they looked.
Oh, yeah. Well, now it's taken a turn. Everybody's in the weird yoga pants with, the buttocks showing and walking around, at the Coyote, drinking 5 cocktails thinking that they're healthy. So, and it's also about everything's yoga now. It's not the yoga that came from India, trust me. It's more vanity and aerobics and how much your yoga mat cost and how much your yoga pants cost.
Mm-hmm. But again, that goes back into the idea that marketing has really, the marketers are the ones making the money. I mean, it's not it doesn't do anything for you to have a yoga mat that is really expensive. It's the marketers that are making the most money. Now, let's veer away a little bit from society and go into this idea of relationships. Now, you said you've had some experience. What are the danger signals, and we're going to do the comparison here, what are the danger signals of someone who might be a malignant narcissist and also a outright sociopath? What are those things a person should look for at the personal level?
It's so hard to see the red flags from the beginning. I mean, the personal opinion is, the widespread opinion is that it's so hard to detect one. They are so charming and they are so likable. They'll sweep you off your feet. But I've cut through this, and to me, we can see it. Yes, they are very charming. They are very likable. They're very friendly, personable. But we cut through all this and not wait 2 months to be destroyed or 2 years to be destroyed after they've manipulated us and used us and broken our hearts. We can see it right away, but you got to be really in tune. And what this is their energy. Their energy is super high. They just come into our lives and they want to know everything about us, and they want to come into our homes. They want to cook for us. They want to clean for us. They want to take us out. It's that love bombing I talked about earlier. And it's also the honeymoon period. They sweep us away on this manic honeymoon period, and everything is they're perfect. We're perfect. We feed into it. We become obsessed. They're obsessed with us. None of that is normal. So before we wait 3 months later after they manipulated our money away from us and started mooching off of us after they were so generous with us from the beginning, we don't need to wait that long. If anybody comes on in this fashion, it's not normal. People proceed in relationships with healthier people proceed with moderation. They take things slowly. The manic relationship starts off with, I love you in a week. You're my soulmate within 2 weeks or 1 or 2 weeks. You're the perfect woman. None of us are perfect. And if we wait a few months after meeting somebody, we'll all see that. None of us are perfect. But they will come on that we're the best thing ever. We're perfect. And we feed into that as well. We want to hear that. We're flattered. And we get caught up in these people because they're good for our ego as well. In the meantime, it's an energy exchange. They're sucking off of our energy because we have those deep feelings. They don't. So they're sucking off of our deep feelings that we fall instantly in love with them as well. And they're feeding off of that thrill that they got us to fall madly in love with them. And so that's energizing them to be their narcissist or sociopath self. And in the meantime, we're getting the thrill too that that this person is so madly in love with us. So we got to really watch out for that. We got to watch out for that guy, or, in some cases, the rare histrionic woman that just wants to be there for us every second of the day after only a couple weeks. That's not normal. Anything in life that you're going to get and that it's going to be in a healthy fashion is in moderation. It's step by step. It's slow, and it builds.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you confirmed it, because that's one thing that I had a few people ask me about. I create a character who is female in my Freedom from Conscience books, and she can create a relationship almost instantaneously. And I've had a couple people say, well, it seems like she moves really fast. And I said, well, that's the way they work. They work really fast. And at the same time, they have no problem in working on more than one relationship at the same time.
No, I'm a magnet. I'm trying to, not be that magnet anymore. But again, like I said, I live in Southern California, and it's just crazy people out here. And nobody stays committed. Nobody's loyal. I can't say nobody. That's a bad word, but you know what I'm saying. Most people. But I just had that happen to me a couple years ago. I had a guy that came on. You'd think I'd learn, because I was writing my book a couple years ago. But a guy came on super strong to me, and he looked like a nerd. So I thought he was probably a nerd. I like nerds, in a way. So I thought he was a nerd, but he had this high energy, and I thought, well, that's really cool, a nerd with high energy. He later tells me that he went through this period of his life where he was questioning his manlyhood. He was all aligned that that when he was coming on to me, he was coming on to 45 other women at the same time.
45, wow.
45! And this guy is close to his 70s. I have this older men like me for some reason.
It wasn't a certain former president of the United States, was it?
Yeah, you got to wonder what this guy, and he has a basic job. So you got to wonder what they're all doing out there in Washington D.C. If this guy out here with a basic job was doing this, he was pulling this off.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that. Well, you seem to be high energy, so maybe that's what attracts them, is their high energy too. They don't want the person who's the, the really shy person, unless they have a need for someone who they can actually own, correct?
Yes, that is true. No. They're attracted to shy people because those shy people they can control. They're attracted to that. I am really not high energy. I just fake it. I put myself out there for people like you. I can't be quiet sitting here, but I will go retreat later because I know we used the term earlier, empath. I don't know if all your listeners understand what that word is. It's just highly sensitive people. We pick up on all the energies. We feel the suffering we don't just see and can relate to that poor animal starving, oh, poor animal, but we can actually feel the animal starving. And the homeless person, like a narcissist or sociopath will give $1 to a homeless person to make themselves look good, but they don't actually feel the suffering of the homeless person. And I do. I would, and I know that's an overused term, empath, but I pick up these energies. So yes, I might have the high energy. Right now it's earlier for me at the earlier part of the day, but I'll crash and burn, later on and have to retreat into my bedroom and read a book. But they don't. They never crash and burn. They can go on 4 hours of sleep and just keep on going out there because, like what you said earlier, they get their energy off the people. Off people looking at them and liking them and applauding them. I don't get that energy. So I have a limited amount for your show right now. And they do catch me. You're right. At this moment when I am like this, they catch me. So they do like people like me. And they also they will go after the quieter person too, because that person, not only that person, but me as well. I'm more accepting. And people like us, we're more, we overlook the things that they're doing. We forgive more often. We give not 2 chances, but 20 chances. So it just varies. They can go after the quiet person, or they can go after somebody like me that has, 4 hours of energy a day. They can go after both of us.
Now, one thing I kind of gathered from, your website and stuff is that you feel that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you feel that it's not correct when some people assume that malignant narcissists and sociopaths have no emotions. Could you explain that? Because a lot of people believe that they're almost like living, the narcissist or the psychopath, sociopath, whatever, that they're emotionless creatures, kind of like a competitive Mr. Spock, again, a Star Trek analogy. But at least in my research, and I think you said that they do have emotions. Could you explain that?
I do. I know it's the repeated, and one person says something, it seems like all the sociopath people, not sociopath people, sociopath writers and educators and counselors out there, they kind of repeat the same things over and over. We got to watch out for that. They say that sociopaths don't have empathy. I believe that they do, but it's a different way than we're used to seeing. I coin it in my book, the empathy link. That means the sociopath that I married, which started me writing the book, but then I started seeing that I had other sociopaths in my life. But the sociopath that I married, I got it from him, and then I started seeing it in other people. He has what's called the empathy link. And I would be cold, because it gets cold in Southern California. People don't believe that, but it does. And I would be cold, and he would just go on this frenzy to find me jackets and to put shawls on me. And he would be in this inner turmoil when he saw me cold. And so I was with him for a couple years, and stories came out, and it related, he's a Turk, to him being a kid in Istanbul. And they had coal furnaces there. It was cold in the winters in Istanbul, and people don't understand that either. It's super cold in the winters. And he talked about how he was just cold all the time as a kid in these apartments. Istanbul is largely apartments, high-rise apartments out of wood. So he always talked about being cold. And another thing, and his family was cold as well. Another thing is in Istanbul, Turkey as well, and there's a lot of other countries, in our country as well, but we hide them in the shelters. There's a lot of suffering animals on the streets of Turkey, and you go through any town in Turkey, and there's going to be starving street animals. And he just cringed over the starving street animals. He grew up in it where people were just kicking him and walking past him and walking over him. He grew up that way. And it's something went inside of him that now he cringes at the thought of an injured or hurt animal. So it wasn't a lot of good that came out of that relationship. He stole my home from me, he stole my money, and he used me, and he smeared me, ruined my reputation, spread lies about me. But what good came out of that is we went back to Turkey, and it was under my insisting, but he wanted to look good, and also he had the empathy link that we did a huge animal rescue project there for the street animals. So you can connect up to empathy link. Another one, the guy that I met with the 45 women at one time, he always fed me. I got sick, I went underweight, and he became neurotic that he just wanted to feed me all the time. And it went back to his childhood, that his mother was constantly trying to feed him and nurture him and take care of him through food. So whenever he saw me, he wanted to feed me. So I do believe that they have the empathy, but I call it the empathy link. And it's something going back to their childhood, before adolescence, around 13, 14 years old. That's when we all get screwed up. Whether it's the empath, we're screwed up as an empath, or just a narcissist or a sociopath. We all change around 13, 14. But I'm talking before that. There's something that goes back before 13, 14 that they link up with when they're older, and it's usually something in the way of trauma, or the nurturing thing, like I said, with the feeding and the 45, woman guy, or my sociopath that's featured in the book, the Turk, and the animals and being cold in Istanbul.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also could be, I've heard about, like, for instance, sociopathic women. To a certain degree, they want perfect children. They because the children reflect upon them. But if anyone were to mess with their kids, they can become extremely vengeful and destructive towards anyone who would bother them. And without naming names, there is a certain loyalty that I've heard of. There's certain political sociopaths who they might even be married, and they might have an unconventional marriage, but they still will stand up for each other no matter what. I mean, they'll destroy people who get in their way. So there is a loyalty, but maybe it's kind of like a crocodile. You get near its nest, it will eat you alive.
Good point. Yeah, my father was very mentally ill, and he abused me and my brothers horrifically. But somebody messed with us. Oh my goodness, you better watch out. And you brought up a very good point. And as far as the empathy link is concerned that I brought up, but the whole thing about the empathy link too is you don't feed their ego for a while. You don't tell them how great they are. You don't compliment their looks or how amazing they are. Then they'll cut that empathy link off right away. So I didn't mention that. But as soon as I said enough is enough with my sociopath, the Turk, as soon as I drew the line, I said, it's over. This is crazy. And that he cut it off completely. He wouldn't care if I froze out, in mountains. He wouldn't have cared at that point. So they can cut off the empathy link immediately, which is different from, quote, normal people. We can't do that. We still feel bad long after the person stops feeding our ego, We still can protect the person. They can't. As soon as I stopped the nonsense with my sociopath and said, enough is enough, I'm divorcing you or whatever, he wouldn't have cared if I died at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of a lot of cases where someone will be in a relationship with a sociopath, psychopath, whatever, and they will, if a person breaks up with someone, a lot of times it could be like a long-term relationship. People, most people kind of go through kind of a depression, but they'll just be on the phone trying to find a date for that night to reestablish a relationship immediately.
Oh, immediately. And I started before, the 45 woman guy, as soon as I started catching on to him, I'd say enough is enough. And he was leaving my house and he was in the driveway texting the next ego source. He wasn't out of my driveway yet. And that's what drives us, a lot of us, to the internet to find people like you or maybe me, is because of that discard. How can you do that? I mean, if I'm over with somebody and it wasn't maybe the most successful relationship, well, I still grieve. I still feel sad. I still just want to go inward, and I'm not ready to go back out there immediately and look for the next guy. I need to go inward. I need to process. I need to feel sad. They don't, because it's all about ego supply for them and ego attention and instant gratification. So as soon as we cut them off, we stop telling them how great they are, or great looking, or thank you so much for doing this, and thank you, you've saved my life. As soon as we stop that, they have no use for us. We're not feeding their ego. They'll find the next person that walks by. And that's what drives most of us to the internet, is because of that cold discard. How do you cut your emotions off like that? They're relationship jumpers. They go from one, and that's, speaking of our red flags that you brought up earlier, that's another way. Even if you meet a person right away, they will tell you about their relationship history. You can listen, you can tune in and not give them excuses. So tune into their relationship history. If they have more than a few bad relationships, that's a key, that they're a relationship jumper. They'll drop the person in a minute and go, especially guys I'm speaking of, they'll go impregnate the next woman. And to them, that's power and control, and it's love, air quotes, and when in fact it's just lust and horniness. They'll go from one family to the next. A lot of them are serial family makers. They'll impregnate a woman. After 2 years, it'll be bad. They'll go impregnate the next woman, and so they idealize too. So if we're not they'll idealize us as long as we're complimenting them and we're submissive to their power and control, and we're little dolls in their life. They'll idealize us. We're the best thing in the world. We're the greatest. How beautiful we are. We're the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. But again, as you said, they're prone to boredom. So that we'll bore them eventually, even if we are perfect, which none of us are. But if we pretend perfect, we'll keep them around a little bit, maybe longer than per usual. But even if we're the perfect, image, which they'll stay around maybe a few months longer, but they'll get bored with us too. But especially if we catch them out there when we call them out on it, they'll find somebody in 1 second, and they're not picky either. They do end up with some good women, but it's because they play the numbers game. They're bound to catch a good one every now and then, but that's only because they play the numbers game. No, they'll go after anybody for ego source.
Well, you say they'll go after anyone. My understanding is, and it's especially true for women, but it's also true for men in many cases, that sociopathic people tend to be very fluid in their sexual orientation. Have you seen that?
Yes. And a lot of people, women especially, that are still deluding themselves about the guy. Oh, I was special to him. I know I was. How do I say that? Most are sex addicts, and most are sexual predators, and they seek their energy through. A lot of their energy comes not only from adoration and I'm such a great guy, look, I picked up the tab. A lot of it comes through the sexual act. A lot of them, they don't feel a lot of energy except through the applause or through the sexual act. So, and it can go to being bisexual. And so that's how they receive. And it's also what you said. They have to step it up all the time. So maybe women sexually charge them up before, but then they might have to experiment with men. They're experimenters. They have to always experiment, and they're into porn. And they love porn women, thinking they're the ideal. Because they're into illusions of people. They're not into real people and what we really are. They're into the illusion of us, the perception that they get. So you'll see a lot of narcissistic sociopathic males talking about strippers and porn women that, oh no, they're great women, but they just fell on hard times. Why they're off doing this, and I want to save them. So everything is, they have this wild sexual nature to them, and that's how they do catch a lot of their prey. They have a sexual magnetism to them. But again, like everything else, we could give them the greatest sex in the world and they'll be prone to boredom and off seeking some more sex from something in their eyes, not in normal people's eyes, but better and exciting.
And women are the same?
Oh yeah, the histrionic woman. Yeah, she will. She knows men. She's not stupid. She knows men are into porn. So she will reenact a porn scene to get the man to fall madly in love with her because he's with this great porn woman that's also an everyday girl. You know, I mean, he makes up stories. But so these women know, how do you catch a guy? You act manic in sex. You jump around. You take it any way you can, not to be crude on your show. And you fake orgasms. I mean, you're having 8 orgasms. How better way to get a guy? Yeah, and these histrionic women know this. They're not. They know guys like porn. They know guys are into the illusion of porn. They know that, so they're going to create the illusion in his bed.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You know, in the last few minutes, tell me, in a sense of politics, because this is a political year, everyone's thinking politics. Would you rather elect a malignant narcissist? And notice I say malignant, meaning, you know, this is a true blue narcissist, not the guy that looks in the mirror, you know, type thing. Would you rather vote for a malignant narcissist or a sociopath for any position of power? If you have no choice whatsoever. That's not a hint at what's coming up. I'm just saying, if you have it's hypothetical if you had to choose between the two.
That's a good question. Okay. Well, in my eyes, yes, I do I classify the narcissist sociopath term. I kind of clump them together, but in my eyes, sociopath is more destructive and more dangerous. And they will, really do some detrimental things in your life as opposed as a narcissist. He will also, but it won't be as long lasting, and I think they more are the ones with the empathy link, is what I mentioned before, the narcissist, as opposed to the sociopath. They more have empathy link. So I would say a narcissist, unfortunately, would have more of an empathy link, and he would be more it's the power, the energy. I'm sorry, I meant to say it's the energy. So he would have that high energy to get things done. Yes, it would be self-serving, so he would look good in our history books, but it would also hopefully serve our good, and he would keep us as safe as I guess we could be. I don't know, but probably a narcissist, I would say.
Yeah, because my idea would be, while there's not a huge difference in the basic, like you said, there's not a huge, in fact, you could just throw them all into the dark triad and say they're all the same. I know there's distinctions that people make all the time, but the big difference I see between a narcissist and a sociopath is the issue of vengeance. And, in my opinion, at least, it seems like the narcissist, if you slight them in any way, or you're a competitor, as long as they win, they're just like, yeah, whatever. And you're kind of no longer in their life. I mean, they push you aside, and then they're just focused on what's going on. Whereas a sociopath doesn't forget. It might be 1 year, 3 years. They will get you back. At least that's what I have been led to believe.
Thank you for saying that. Oh, that is such a great way to, yes. My book is written on My Sociopath the Turk. You're right. He moved on immediately. I didn't ego feed him. He moved on to the next source, the next woman that went along with it. But you're right. He was still, and it was not will. He has 3-4 years later. He's still coming after me, even though it's been a few years and he's moved on to various other destructive relationships that ended badly. He's still thinking about me. But you're right. The other guy that been the 45 woman guy, he's definitely a narcissist. He didn't care. He just moved on to the next one. He didn't care about seeking revenge on me. He's like, whatever. I moved on to the next one. Good way to say it. The sociopath will keep moving on to the next ruined relationship, but they will still keep you in mind. And they will try to get you eventually. And they will get you eventually.
Yeah, there was a study done, again, they're linking the two together, psychopaths, but there was a study done recently that said that psychopaths tend to maintain a relationship with their exes. But it's the article I read, to me it sounded like they were saying, oh yeah, they really still have this connection. And I was thinking, no, they maybe want to use this as still a source of validation in life and stuff, and maybe a little quickie on the side with the ex-wife or the ex-husband or the ex-whatever. And to me, it didn't sound like it was a good thing that they maintained, they kept their exes on their Facebook account and their social media and stuff. To me, that sounded like, okay, that's a little worrisome.
Oh, thank you for that red flag. Yeah, that goes back to the red flag. No, and what a lot of us empath or sensitive people or nice people, we will fall into that. Oh, he's friends with his exes. What a great guy. Oh, look at that. No, I can guarantee you that would be destructive. And you're right. I call it keeping them in their back pocket. They keep them in their back pocket. They keep them as a source around just in case they're current woman, current whatever, lets them down a little bit. Well, what do I mean by letting them down? Calls them out on something. As soon as that new person in their life calls them out on something, who do they run to? I mean, come on. They run to the ex. Oh, she doesn't understand me. She did this to me. And often these exes, no, this is not healthy. A lot of these exes are codependent. They think that they're benefiting off of staying, quote, air quotes, friends with him. It's not a friendship. Friendships are mutual giving and receiving, and they're healthy. No, he will keep her in the back pocket also another reason he keeps her in the back pocket, he can tell people, I'm friends with my exes. To him, it makes him, it sells him better to the next person. So she stays around because maybe she gets favors from him every now and then. Handyman work, He comes around and takes her out when she's lonely to dinner. And it's a mutually toxic link, and nobody should put up with it. And it's not healthy. I've never seen exes have healthy, real friendships. I've never seen it.
Mm-hmm. Even in marriage situations when they break up. But I assume too that a lot of sociopaths would make sure that they continue hurting the ex whenever they can as well. So obviously it's not all because they want to keep someone in their back pocket.
No, they do that. You're right. So often these exes are so messed up, they're not really moving on in their lives either. And they'll pull them back in every now and then, especially when they're lonely and down and not getting a good boyfriend in their lives. So the sociopath will pull them back in. And what does he do? Oh, sociopaths are big at the flirts. They're manic flirts. Most of them are manic, indiscriminate flirts. So what does he do with the poor downtrodden ex that hasn't really moved on in her life? He starts flirting with her again, and she gets hopeful. Oh, they're going to reunite. And what you said to sex. So when the other, the current woman lets him down, says, no, stop doing this to me, you will not. What does he do? Instead of taking responsibility with her, yes, you're right, I shouldn't do this. I'm sorry, I'm going to make myself better. What does he do? He runs off to the ex, gets her to say, oh, you're so great, I miss you. She's misunderstanding you. He starts flirting with her, and she has renewed hope that they're going to have to reunite again. And she forgets, conveniently all the horrible things he did to her,
Yeah, and plus it's probably great sex too.
Oh, it's always great sex with them, but it's manic. And they can't have that great sex because they're not emotionally linked to us. It's all of their, how are they being perceived? Are we perceiving them as the great Adonis lover? So to them, it's all how are we looking at them? It's not that they're connecting to us with love and that they're coming across in a loving way with us. No, it's am I coming across as a big manly stud? Am I pleasing her? And they try to send you pictures of themselves to get you intrigued. Even before you might have a relationship with them, they'll send you inappropriate selfies of themselves to get you intrigued.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm kind of having to rush here because we only have a couple seconds, but where can people find your book?
Oh, thank you. Amazon, Sociopath. You have to scroll down because I think they have the first edition out still up there, but it's an empath soul journey among sociopaths. So if you put in My Sociopath, scroll down a little bit in case you can't get the first edition anyway. It's not being sold. Twitter, My Sociopath. Facebook, My Sociopath. I have a WordPress, My Sociopath. I'm not too active on there yet. I tend to improve that. And please be interactive. I love answering questions. I love giving advice. I love interacting. But you have to kind of pull me out, and ask me a question, and I get all excited and want to answer.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you for volunteering some time here and sharing. And I really encourage people to check out your website and your book and learn more about sociopaths and malignant narcissists and so forth. And I'd like to thank my audience for tuning in to Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions.
This is Ozzy Skateboard.